Friends, storytelling is different from just narrating an event. You need some excitement, introduction into that. As I have told you that storytelling has been talked very seriously in the recent years as part of effective tour guiding. Nobody in this world says that I don't like to listen to stories. It doesn't mean that you can listen to stories all the time. So when, where, and how a story is told, that makes it more important and entertaining. Stories are the sources for knowing our ancient past. We knew about, or rather we assumed about our ancient past, prehistoric past, through the stories or through the images carved on the walls, from which we created stories out of the lives of our ancient ancestors that help us to do further research on getting the scientific data. So stories were the way through which we can travel and reach the scientific knowledge. Nice stories create a long-lasting impact on the audience. Our epics, mythological stories, as I told you, even historical research begin with the stories. In fact, the great stories of the world, the mythological stories, the epics, all were once told and then later compiled, printed, and now in all the modern audio-visual versions. But they all were told once and excited hundreds, thousands from that time onwards. That is why it survived the time, and still we are eager to know about the stories. Listening to a story does not need an audience of a specific group. There is no age barrier. There is no barrier of language, religion, or their background. They can be the powerful medium to express an event or a person. That is why nowadays all the tourism experts want their professionals to be a storyteller. And before we know the importance and the key points of storytelling, many times we all know that we have been doing tour guiding. Some of them are doing it for a few decades. Have we ever thought who could be the first tour guide in the world? Definitely the first one may not come in the historical book because they can be in the prehistorical time. I thought I want to find this answer. In my research, I reached some point where I thought I will share that with you. The answer to this question is in a small video. This video will take about 6 minutes. Please listen and watch this video and then we will continue with what made me think about this person would be the first tour guide of the world. Watch this, please.
क्या हुआ पार्थ? अर्जुन, अर्जुन तुम विचलित क्यों हो गए? बताओ कुंती कुमार, क्या बात है?
मैं ये युद्ध नहीं लड़ सकता, नहीं लड़ सकता मैं।
ये तुम क्या कह रहे हो? क्यों नहीं लड़ सकते?
मेरे बाणों के निशाने पर अपने ही सगे संबंधी हूं, तो फिर मैं बाण कैसे चला सकता हूं?
ये देव मंदिर नहीं, कर्तव्य का संग्राम है। तुम्हारे पितामह और गुरु द्रोण भले कितने ही अच्छे हो, परंतु प्रतिज्ञा और कर्तव्य के बंधन से बंधे हैं, इसीलिए अधर्मियों का साथ दे रहे हैं। तुम्हें उनका वध करना होगा।
मैं अपनों के खून से अपने हाथ नहीं रंग सकता, वासुदेव नहीं रंग सकता।
तुम उन्हें नहीं मारोगे तो वो तुम्हें मार देंगे। यदि तुम धर्म का राज्य स्थापित नहीं करोगे तो अधर्म का राज होगा। जिन कौरवों ने द्रौपदी का वस्त्र हरण करना चाहा था, वही पापी हाथ तुम्हारी मां, बहनों को सबके सामने निर्वस्त्र कर सकते हैं। इसलिए युद्ध करो। आत्मरक्षा के लिए हथियार उठाना, अपने अधिकारों के लिए लड़ना, न्याय और धर्म के लिए युद्ध करना हिंसा नहीं, वीरता है। अर्जुन, तू किसी के मरने का दुख मत कर। नैनम छिंदन्ति शस्त्राणि, नैनम दहति पावक, न चैनम क्लेदन्त्यापो, न सोष्यति मारुता। सुन अर्जुन, न आत्मा मरती है, न मार सकती है, ना अग्नि इसे जला सकती है, ना जल इसे डुबा सकता है। जिस तरह मनुष्य पुराने कपड़े उतारकर नए कपड़े पहनता है, उसी प्रकार आत्मा नए शरीर में प्रवेश करने के लिए पुराने शरीर को छोड़ देती है। शरीर नश्वर है, आत्मा अमर है।
परंतु अज्ञानवश मैं आज तक आत्मा को नाश होने वाली वस्तु ही समझता रहा हूं।
मैं तुझे समझाता हूं, मेरा विराट रूप देख। मृत्यु की चिंता करता है। देख, मैं ही सबका मृत्युदाता हूं और मैं ही सबका जन्मदाता हूं। बता, क्या अब भी तेरे अज्ञान का नाश नहीं हुआ?
बस प्रभु बस, आपका तेज और सहन नहीं कर सकता। मैं तो अज्ञानवश आपको केवल बंसी बजाइया ही समझता रहा, परंतु आपसे बढ़कर कोई देवता नहीं। आपसे ही जीवन है और आपसे ही मृत्यु।
तो ठीक है वत्स, तू अब समस्त शंकाओं को त्याग कर मेरी शरण में आ और मेरी आज्ञा का पालन कर। आंखें खोलो भक्त।
वो तो आपने खोली दी भगवान।
भीष्म, द्रोणाचार्य, कृपाचार्य इत्यादि सबको मैं ही मारूंगा। इनकी मौत का तो नाम मात्र कारण बन जा। चलो वत्स, अब कायरता मत दिखा। गांडीव उठा और बाण चला।
जो आज्ञा प्रभु, आप अपना शंख बजाइए, मैं युद्ध करने को तैयार हूं।
I hope you enjoyed this small clipping. It is, most of you must be knowing, this is a scene from the epic Mahabharata where Krishna is taking Arjun. Krishna is the charioteer and his guide, where he has given, before the war started, Krishna took Arjun on his chariot, drove all around the war field, showed him who has all been ready for the fight. Seeing all his close relative on either side, ready to be fought and killed, Arjun is getting disappointed, weak in his mind. Krishna giving him the real meaning of life and tell him that this, you are just a tool in this world. You have to do your responsibility. Krishna's role here was a guide. In fact, he was a driver guide who took his client to the war field. He not only gave a visual demonstration of the war field, but also he narrated a very impactful story about oneself. What best guide you can find, even if you look for any other historical book or mythological stories. That's why I thought Krishna's role here can be compared with a bus guide who not only took his client to the place and showed him what is in front, but gave him a visual narration, what gone into his heart, and Arjun himself felt that emotions into his heart, and he had his self-realization. He did what we do when we have to take our clients to various destinations, monuments, villages, cities, temples. We are doing the same work, not as great as Krishna has done, but our role is as similar as what Krishna did to Arjun on that day. And why stories? Because you can narrate an event, you can just brief about a historical event or an incident, but that will be only just you are giving some factual information, which will not create an emotional impact on the viewer, on the listener. Stories can draw a picture or story can even create a movie into the minds of the listener, which he can take and absorb into his mind, and he should be able to sense and experience what the story is actually narrated to him. And as I told you, it does not have a limitation of what age group of audience, and it also emotionally attach the listener to the story or the event what you are narrating. Maybe in a tour we may say about hundreds of facts, but one story told in the right perspective will be the key and the most memorable element in the guest whom we take. Even in Mahabharata, the epic itself, there is another great storyteller. Krishna was actually a guide, but there was another storyteller. His name is Sanjay, who was the minister of Dhritarashtra, who is a blind king, whose 100 sons who were one side on the war against the 5 brothers. Being a blind person, Dhritarashtra could not know or see what is happening around him. But Sanjay, using his great skill of storytelling, he created a running commentary of the Kurukshetra war, by which Dhritarashtra could feel, sense the war even without opening his eyes. So such powerful characters narrating, telling stories are being portrayed in the epics, which is Mahabharata can be more than 5,000 years old in its existence. So storytellers have been there even prehistoric times in such kind of epic stories. I'm sure that most of us, about 30 years back, those who enjoyed sports and games, remember before the televisions, we used to listen to running commentaries. In fact, the commentators used to describe every incident, what happens on the field, without losing the excitement on the field, what is happening. Now, I'm sure very few listen to running commentaries, but close your eyes and just listen to this cricket commentary. This is way back in 1986, Ashes test between England and Australia. Close your eyes, listen to this commentary. You can feel that you are right at the stadium.
To the captain to captain.
Captain to captain, yes. It's very tense over this. Essential for Gaia not to get out. His border comes up and bowls to him, and he pads outside the off stump, but he doesn't hit his pad. It's too wide. It's taken by Healy, of course, standing up. Still with a silly point, a slip and a forward short leg. Border bowling over the wicket, sleeves roll down. Swarthy face, not quite a beard, it's a bit of stubble. Up he runs now, bowls well pitched up outside the off stump, and that one padded away there by Gar, and it trickles up on the offside, and all of them runs up from mid-off to field. 58 for 3, 184 runs behind. Australia all out in the end for 528. At lunch they were 381 for 8. This one is outside the off stump, played off the back foot firmly by Gar, perfectly a reasonable stroke, and is fielded by Alderman. So if Gar can get through this over, England at least would start with two of their premier batsmen still at the crease. Very essential is there to try and save this match. Up comes Border now, over the wicket, bowls. Gar pads there, doesn't play the ball at all, thrusts out that pad, and down the pitch it comes, and Border picks it up, gives it a little bit of polish. This is incidentally the...
Right. If I don't make a commentary of the football, definitely I'll be disappointing several of you, because cricket is on one game which is popular, but the most popular game, one of the most popular games in the world is football. Just listen, another clipping.
And Tottenham are right back in this match, right back in the FA Cup, and right back on the Wembley Trail.
Yeah, ball played forward to Robinson. Robinson going forward strong. He's inside the Manchester United penalty area. He finds Smith, and Smith must score, and he hasn't scored, and Bailey has saved it. And there goes the whistle for the end of extra time. And Gordon Smith will remember that moment for a very, very long time indeed.
A free kick to Spurs, a good 30 yards from goal, and Paul Gascoigne is lined up from a central position. Gascoigne moving towards it now, drives it in direct. Oh, it's a great goal from Paul Gascoigne. 5 minutes on the watch, and Paul Gascoigne has scored the opening goal in the first FA Cup semi-final to be played at Wembley.
Whelan's just outside the Everton penalty area.
Right. What is the relevance of these commentaries in storytelling? In fact, these commentators are telling you the story of that match live. The listener can be from anywhere in the world, but when you listen, remember, they are just getting you the excitement on the field right to your heart. You may not be seeing it through your eyes, but you sense the pressure, the tension, the excitement on the field right into your brain. In fact, that is the key of storytelling. If, as a storyteller, you can get into the brain, get into the heart of the viewer, the listener, that is the capacity of a successful storyteller. A powerful story definitely should have a structure. It must have a main character when you narrate a story, and this character should have a conflict which he goes through, and a plot which tells the series of events what is connected with the conflict which the character goes through. In fact, in the commentary, the character is us, ourselves, and we have that impact of the story, what we are listening from on the field, the excitement, the tension, that we are feeling that. Whether he's going to score 100 or there is going to be one more goal. This is a powerful way of presenting things. As I told you that there is a difference between telling or just narrating an event and telling a story. A story should have these three major things. Should have a main character, must have a conflict, and a plot which tells the events in a sequence, filled with tension and emotion and whatnot. Right. When you tell a story, how do you know that I'm doing right? Definitely, we can sense the listener's experience through his gestures, through his expressions. I'm just showing the 9 different expressions which normally those who have come to Kerala must be knowing. When you go to the Kathakali dance drama show, they will demonstrate how these 9 rasas or 9 expressions, emotions are portrayed by the actor. But if you are telling a powerful story, a compelling story, naturally you can see these emotions in the face of your client. Only when our stories can create such emotions into the audience, then only that is called a powerful story. Only when we say such stories that we become successful. Right. As a tour guide, we have many opportunities to tell stories. Sometimes we have a bunch of stories which we want to say. But maybe when you get into a monument, you talk about a king, you talk about the architecture. Most of this information now is available through media. And also, many of the travelers already collect this data. Sometimes we ourselves feel, yes, I've been saying the same data information over and again. And these clients they're looking at several different angles. They're not listening to me. We all feel odd, awkward when we are trying to say something very serious and our guests' eyes are somewhere else. A powerful story can bring back that attention. Many times when we are giving facts and figures, we forget to connect those facts and figures with a human element into it. Our comparison should be something what the audience can imagine in his mind. If you say that the state of Tamil Nadu is the size of Greece to somebody who is coming from United States or an Australian, he will not be able to visualize the size of Greece. If somebody who's coming from Greece, maybe they can. So similarly, when we give connections, be prepared to know some facts and figures where you can connect with the location or the people or the characters which commonly known to the customer, because suddenly they can connect that information with the stories or the information what they know. Also, when we tell a story, the characters who are having a desire to do something, the uniqueness of the efforts that they put to achieve the target or going through the series of events, all matters when you are knitting a story to be presented before our clients. Historical and present day characters can be really effectively used to make your story very interesting and engaging. Generally, storytelling, we consider that as somebody who narrates, a narrator's job. That is only a one-sided, just like listening to the radio. But a real storyteller, live storyteller, should have his audience engaged in the story. Like as we are having when we were little children, we used to listen to the stories of our grandparents and had a lot of questions, because when the grandmother says, the king came on a horse, naturally we are visualizing a beautiful prince riding a horse. So this kind of engagement must be created by the storyteller. That is where we can be, like as we are having when we were little children, we used to listen to the stories of our grandparents and had a lot of questions, because when the grandmother says, the king came on a horse, naturally we are visualizing a beautiful prince riding a horse. So this kind of engagement must be created by the storyteller. That is where we can be successful in our narration. Right? What can be a story? Anything what you see around can be a story, provided if you are prepared and collected sufficient information. Just a small story. This is a very popular food item in Mumbai, Pav Bhaji. I think everybody knows. Naturally, when you're doing a tour of Mumbai, or sometimes even otherwise, somebody who sees this dish, nowadays even in 5-star hotels, this is served. You can connect that with a nice story. See, way back in 1860s, if your client is an American, he will have more excitement. Way back in 1860s, when the American Civil War was going on, there was a big shortage of the king cotton, which is very popular all around the world those days. And the American companies, American farmers could not supply sufficient of this cotton because of the trouble there. So many of the world textile dealers in the world started looking for an alternative, and they found Mumbai is a big hub of cotton mills. So they gave big, huge orders, which normally with that time's infrastructure, it is not possible for the Mumbai textile industry could supply. So the big volume of demand and limited infrastructure, so they decided to work in different shifts, almost 24 hours. Poor workers having a good time, having lots of work. But this busy schedule of work, they could not even have their good meal because they had to run and eat something quickly. Traditionally, we all have experience having a habit of having cooked food, some breads and something. But those workers could not have enough money at that time. Secondly, they didn't have enough time. So one of the local tea shop wala, what he did was, he procured some cheap vegetables from the vegetable market, which is cheapest, which is going to be gone off from the market that day. He bought all the cheap vegetables. And those days there are bread walas where you can buy from bakery, not the best of the bread, but again the cheaper bread. They started serving this bread with a little bit butter on it, and they started serving this curry, vegetable curry, pav, and the bread. In fact, the workers were very happy. It is cheap, very quick, is ready and quick to eat and back to work. But in no time, it became a hit among the textile workers. Later on, it made some little bit more changes when the Portuguese added the pav into the present day style. See, this is just a snack you saw on the way, but you can make this as a story where the your guests will feel that yes, this is something I've never heard anywhere. I could not read it from any books yet. So this is what the takeovers for a client when they do with an excellent storyteller. Reading or narrating facts, as I told you, you can very well say the same thing in a way. Yes, this is a food item which has been come during the time in the mid 19th century when the textile workers did not have any other food. In 2 lines, you can give the facts, but if you start giving it into a knitted events, it makes more impactful for the listener. It is even more better if you have a character. For example, you can say the same story. Yes, there was, there's a factory where all these people are going, and no time. The shop owner Ram thought, how can I get some business out of them? He did not have enough money. He wanted to do like this, collect some vegetables, and he started cooking. First day, he could not get much business, but slowly people started coming to him, and later he became a big shop owner in the area. So that is how we present a story where the listener will very anxiously wanting to know what was the end of it. That struggle, the emotions of the character who took that till the end. It's always not necessary that the main character wins. It can be a disaster at the end, but that emotions, what he or she goes through, must be transferred to the listener. A story can impact our brains. There are a lot of studies nowadays, especially in the Western universities and medical research centers. There are a lot of studies now going on. The response of brain when someone listens to a very powerful story. They say that a compelling story with conflicts impacts the brain of the audience and releases cortisol and adrenaline. And that makes them more focused on the listener. In the beginning, as I told you, that when you start narrating about a monument or something, you will have all your audience looking at 10 different angles. That is mainly because the cortisol and adrenaline did not work on them by listening to our narration. Another one is dopamine and oxytocin. This creates empathy. While you listen to a powerful, compelling story, you listen to the conflicts, the events, what goes through the minds, the life of the main character, the struggle, the fight, the drama, that creates these changes in our brain, and that keeps the ears more sharper, eyes more bigger of your guests. So that is the key of a powerful story. This is one of the studies which tells how storytelling affects the brain. Is that a story activates the part of the brain that allows the listener to turn the story into their own ideas and experience. And it is called neural coupling. As I told you about dopamine, the brain releases dopamine into the system when it narrates experiences an emotionally charged event. See, it can be listening to a cricket commentary or a running commentary of football, where you are so excited, so anxious, and you find that it's not happening. You know, it can be a disappointment or excitement. Dopamine is released. That makes you more curious to, maybe you can see sometimes, you know, you have somebody is having a radio those days, listening to a cricket commentary, having the pocket radio and even pressing towards his ear and watching it. You know that even if it is kept a few centimeters away, still he hears the same story. But that is because of the effect of dopamine. Mirroring is another one where listeners will not only experience a similar brain activity to each other, but also to the speaker. Again, there are different activities by the cortex. The processing of facts, two areas of the brain are activators. It's called Broca's and Wernicke's area. A well-told story can engage many additional areas, including, they call it as a motor cortex, sensory cortex, and frontal cortex. These are all technical terms which only a medical expert can explain you much better than this. And being a scientific fact, I don't have a story to tell on this. Right. How do we use these stories in our work? A story should also have an effect, an impact, only when it is told where it has a relevance. Sometimes, people think, yes, I'm going to be a storyteller here onwards. I'm going to have 10 stories with me. And then when you are having somebody waiting on an open area under the sun, you said, okay, I'm going to tell you a story about this for you to be entertained. I think your guest will not be happy to listen to that story, because we should ensure that the stories are told at the right time, in the right mood. Because only when your story is relevant, people will have their first ears to you. Then only the other actions will happen, even if your story is good. Before I go into this, I will tell you sometimes some of the stories which can be very, very interesting for the client. I'll tell you from my experience. Being a tour guide in South, I used to take my clients, my guests, to several temples. Naturally, a Westerner, first temple will be very exciting. Second temple will be okay, because yes, still it has got many people. And we are telling all the stories or the history of this place and temples and this dynasty, that. Third temple, definitely he will be just wanting to finish as quick as possible, and he will only want to see something which is not seen in the other place, something very unique. So once a group of travelers with me, and so I was telling them, yes, these temples are open 365 days. There's no, unlike other religious worshipping centers are open on specific times and days. Hindu temples are 365 days. They asked me, how many Indians of nearly 1 billion Hindus in the country, how many of them goes to these temples daily? My answer was, nobody goes daily, except you are retired or you are seniors. They may go, some of them, not, I can say about 10% of seniors may go to the temple daily. Otherwise, only when we have some free days. Also, there is a fact that just about 80 years back, majority of Indians were not allowed to enter any temples. Then one of them asked me, Jay, you were talking about all these gods and goddesses and stories and a lot of rituals. We thought that every Indian is always doing all these things. That's what we heard. But how come what you told now and these stories what we heard before does not connect? How do you justify it? So I just told them, I can tell you what our beliefs tells when to go to a temple or whom to go to a temple. In Hindu mythology, there is a small incident narrated. Who is a great devotee? Once in heaven, God Vishnu was in his abode. The heavenly saint Narad, who always opened his mouth to say Narayana. Narayana means, oh Lord Vishnu. He never opens his mouth for anything else, just to chant the praises of God Vishnu every time. Then only he does speak anything else. So he always believed and claimed that I am the biggest devotee of Lord Vishnu. One day he met Vishnu at his abode, and he was while having a conversation. Narad said, "Oh Lord, who is much more praising your name, your glories than me? So I must be your biggest devotee in this universe." God Vishnu had a smile on his face and said, "Narad, I know that you are a sincere devotee of mine, but I think one guy on earth, he is my biggest, greatest devotee. Saint Narad really got a shock, because he believed that nobody can open their mouth and chant the name of Vishnu all the time like him, because he does not do any other job. So he just took the address of this guy from Lord Vishnu, quickly went down to earth, found the address, and he went near the house. It was just not a house, it's just a shack of a farm worker and his family. So he went near that house very early in the morning, because he wanted to know from morning till evening what this guy is doing. Early morning, like about 4:30 in the morning, this farmer woke up. He washed his face. His wife got up. She gave him something, warm to drink. He put up his children also. And by around 6:30 in the morning, he took his tools and walked to the field. Till about 11:30, he was working very hard. Then he came back home. His wife gave him some porridge. He had that. He waited for some time, talked to his wife and children, rested for a while, and by around 2:30, he took his tools, went back again to the field. Worked till about 6. Came back, had a wash. Again, his wife gave him something to have, and he spoke to his family for a few minutes. Then he took his mattress, spread the mattress, and lie down. And while lying, because the whole days of hard work, his body was aching, so he just stretched his body and said, "Oh God!" And then in no time he slept. After watching the whole day, Narad was so excited by seeing this whole day routine of this farmer. He ran back to heaven, and then he met Vishnu. "Oh Lord, can you just check the address of this guy you gave me yesterday, that your biggest devotee? Is it correct? Shall I read it to you?" Vishnu smiled and said, "Yes, I know. This address is correct." "Oh Lord, I think you are thoroughly mistaken. I watched him from early morning yesterday till the evening. The whole day he was just doing his family duties. He was just going to work. He had his meal, he had his bath. He just only one word he uttered, not even your name, that while he stretched, his body was aching. He said, 'Oh God,' that's it. How can he be your biggest devotee? Because he never uttered your name. He never offered you a flower or something to you. He never went to a temple. He never chanted your name. Not even he bothered about having a picture of you in his house. So it must be a mistake." But Vishnu smiled and said, "I think I have the right address to you. Hey Narad, from morning till evening, what do you do every day?" Narad said, "Yes, I get up in the morning, I have a bath. From morning, I will chant your name, your God's praises, and then I go out of the house. I visit people, I speak about your glory. I will eat something from whatever they gave, then move to the next person." Right. Do you have parents, Narad? Yes. Okay. I think they must be also old, because your parents. Are you looking after them? Do you have children? No. Okay. So, what job you do to take care of yourself and your family? Narad said, "No, I only chant the glory of the God." That is what, Narad, if someone who does his responsibilities, someone who takes care of his responsibilities righteously, they don't have to call me, because I am them, I am with them, I am in them. So they don't have to see the God from outside, because the God is in them. That's why this guy is my best devotee than you. I told at the end of the story, most of Indians who lives in these villages, who does their responsibilities perfectly for their families. So We need not come to the temple and pray every day. So these kind of things, if you keep with you, that can engage your audience, and that gives, because as a tourist they come, they know that we Indians are all ritualistic, religious, all these things. But if we have a different story to tell, definitely that makes the audience more sharper in listening you. And once you are successful in getting that confidence that when you are going to say something, definitely all the ears, all the faces are going to be towards you. India also has excellent arts and crafts, from Kanchipuram silk sari to the Kashmiri carpets, all the handicrafts from various different places. We all believe, yes, when you taking them to shops, all the stories about, mishaps, but a real compelling story of someone who does this job and his life behind it, definitely we don't have to compel anyone to buy these things, because they are not buying a material, but they are carrying a story with them. Definitely friends from the north in Delhi and Agra knows that the story of the family of the Agra Taj Mahal architect definitely is a very, very touching story, even though we have heard or told it many times. But to the listener, that is a touching story, and that makes them to get one and take them as their memory of that story, that it has influenced them. People ask, when can I say a story? First thing to know is, when you tell a story, never make it obvious that you are going to tell a story. Because if you say, okay, I'm going to say a story about so and so today, because they know that, yes, okay, maybe first few seconds they will try to listen and then they go. But if you are telling them something which they want to know, and then you are telling them in a way with a sequence of things which can have some emotions added to it, definitely that will create more attention. In fact, many of the tour guides are remembered by their guests through those stories, what they told during the course of their tour. Right? How can I become a storyteller? First is learn. Learn from where? From various sources. Not only from books. As I told you, when we travel to places, each place will have a lot of stories of belonging to that area, which may not be written, which may not be told in public or in a forum, but maybe an old guy sitting near a temple, maybe his experience of somebody who came there or something happened. So try to get as much as such experiences from locally. Then when you hear a story, first we should understand, we should incorporate such feelings that we are going to impart to your listener. If you don't feel the story by yourself, you will not be able to pass it on to somebody. Then of course, the important in red color, practice. Without practice, nothing can be made properly. So storytelling also needs practice. And with that, I wish to conclude my session. Of course, storytelling itself is a big thing, big subject now. It has been, a lot of scientific studies have come up, but these small points, I hope, that was my hope, that it may help some of us. But definitely I can say, whether from this you get something or not, a compelling story definitely has a great impact on the minds of the audience. Thank you very much for your patient listening. Thank you.